step outside of your duties and fail to have that coverage. I don't know what happened to our slides. Okay, did I skip one or are we good? Okay, so I put the slide in here just because it's you may know what a tort is already, right? This is a wrongful act that's that the city, anybody in the course and scope of employment commits, and your insurance policy is tied to the Oregon Tort Claims Act, and it actually names out that it covers you for any tort that's committed in the state of Oregon. It goes beyond that as well, but it specifically names out the tort. So it's good to know what those are. Essentially, if you owe a duty as a council member and you're performing within the course and scope of your duties, and you breach a duty, and it's named as a tort, and a claim is filed against you, you have the backing of the insurance policy, that full $30 million aggregate, $10 million per occurrence behind you. It's also tied to what's called a definition of a member, and I think that might be on the next slide. But if you fall into that definition, then you're going to have the full coverage. If you step outside of the definition of the member, then you no longer have that coverage at all, and you might be acting where you think you have coverage behind you, but you actually don't. Oregon Tort Claim Act actually limits the amount of damages that can be recovered from public entities. I think this is last year's. Well, no, this is this year. So any single incident is going to be $855,000 maxed out, and multiple individuals harmed can collect up to $1.7 million, and that goes up year over year. So what duties do you owe? There's a number of them here. Duties of loyalty, duties of obedience, duties of acting in good faith and fair dealing. As council members, you owe a duty of care and due diligence. And really, you owe a duty of reasonable care to anybody that you're working with or any business that you're working with. Sources of claims. For council members, I underline conflicts of interest quite often, and we see claims for libel and slander. Whether you mean to do it or not, it does happen. That's what we tend to see surface in terms of claims resulting from council activities. So what is a member? And when does this member coverage apply to you? It means the entity named in the declarations page, so that's the city, and any officer, employee, or agents, including volunteers, authorized to act on behalf of the named member, all acting within the course and scope of their employment or their duties. So as long as you as a council have decided that we need to take action in this area, or we're going to deliberately move towards some sort of activity, and you are advancing that activity, even if you harm a business, even if you harm an individual within that, your coverage will apply, and you'll have the defense of the insurance policy behind you. Now, where we run into problems is if any council member starts acting on their own, right, and they aren't acting with a quorum that said we're going to do this activity or we're going to move in this direction. Council member steps out on their own and makes a decision or gives an impression or says something about a business. That's when the coverage says we're not gonna respond to that. So it's something to be aware of. We don't want to scare you. We're not saying you can't do it, but just be aware with your eyes open that if you're stepping outside of that and what you've decided as a group, then your coverage may not apply when it comes down to it. So the best thing to do is if you have something that's an order of business that you want to take care of, make sure that you have a quorum in place. You guys are discussing it here. It's memorialized in the minutes. And then if somebody files a claim against you, you can go back and say, well, we decided as a council that this is what we were going to do, and this business was affected, but the insurance should cover us and defense will come and help us out. What we see sometimes is people responding, on Facebook or as you're out in the public, speaking with people and coming up with answers on the fly. And that's when you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble. If your answers to questions, if you meet somebody in the supermarket and they bring up a council matter and they start talking to you, and you give them information about somebody, or you cause some harm to somebody else in your answer, and it's not in line with what the council has decided in this room, that's when the coverage may take a step back and say, hey, listen, this member was acting on their own, so we're not going to provide coverage for this individual claim. So it'll be investigated. A claims adjuster or an attorney will make the decision on whether or not you're on your own in that instance, which can be a little scary if somebody's bringing a lawsuit against you. And we have seen it happen to cities in this area. So council members are empowered only during sanctioned council meetings where a quorum is present. This is where the decisions are made. So somewhat of what I was talking about before, make the decision here. Another thing I usually mention is if you're going to have somebody that is speaking to the public, it's nice to have someone that's designated as the spokesperson for a specific topic. That way, even if that person gets a little off course, they're the spokesperson, right? They may have made a mistake, and mistakes are okay. But if they're off course and they're saying that's something that isn't quite true, and they're the designated spokesperson, the insurance coverage will respond to that generally in a favorable way. So it's good to at least designate somebody if they again get off course or they say something that they shouldn't. They were acting within their course and scope of their duties. Something else to be aware of is ethics complaints. And we've seen a few of those in the surrounding area here as well. Be aware that you do have coverage under your policy for ethics complaints and the defense of those, but if you look at the numbers, it's not a lot. You get $7,500 worth of defense costs per official with a maximum of $15,000 per coverage year. Attorneys are fairly expensive. This will cover some basic investigation and some advice, but it's not going to cover a ton. So you can get into a situation where you're paying out of pocket unless you have your own personal policy in place that might respond as well. So there's just enough coverage there under the CIS policy to know maybe I want a little bit more. There are some conditions as well. You have to notify CIS within 30 days or your insurance broker within 30 days in order to gain this coverage. You have to cooperate throughout, and you have to prevail. You have to win. You can't have done the deed. If it's an ethics complaint and they fine you, even $1, which you see from time to time, they'll just $100 fine, slap on the wrist, that negates your coverage. So if you have fault, basically the insurance coverage is going to go away. And then they pay you on a reimbursement basis as well, so you can be out of pocket on the front end of it. Trying not to scare you guys too much with this, but the idea is, as long as you're staying within your duties, then you actually have quite a robust policy backing you up. And it's just a matter of understanding what the laws are. You go to your annual training every year. You kind of know what those are through those trainings. So just keep it together in that sense, and the insurance policy will respond. So example, online, a council member writes a response to an unfair criticism on Facebook. Now, this is something that commonly happens. And again, we're not going to tell you not to do it. Just be aware that if you respond to somebody and it goes viral and it turns out to hurt them, or they feel like it's hurt them, and they find a reason to file a claim against you, that can be a situation where it's denied, especially if you're out of step with what the rest of the council thinks. So if you happen to have had a quorum and you guys are talking about it and it's a answer that's solidified in your minutes, yeah, perhaps it's probably going to be covered. If you're speaking off the cuff and you go a little bit outside of that, you can be in a little bit of trouble. Press release, council member called at home by the Oregonian asking for comments. I'm going to go back to the spokesperson on this one. It'd be great if you could have somebody that's the spokesperson on a particular topic, right? A boundary expansion, right? If somebody's looking at this and specifically going to be the person that's commenting on that, you can refer the press to them. They can answer the questions the best that they can, and you have the full coverage behind you. That's the best practice. Again, you don't have to do it that way. It's just the better way to get your coverage in place. I threw this one in here, auto liability. If you're attending a conference and involved in an auto accident, anybody want to guess whether or not you are covered?
depends on whether we have, non-owned auto coverage on our policy.
Yes, you do. So,
Okay.
yeah, so you're covered in that
So there-
sense.
We would be covered. then.
It's going to be a course and scope question here. So did you decide as a council member that I'm going to go to this conference as a council member and learn some things and meet some folks? Or did the council decide that this is a conference that's worthwhile? And so we're going to send some of our members to it. The best practice is we're all going to say, okay, this year we go to these conferences and these council members will be going. And that would alleviate any issue with whether or not insurance coverage applies. The claims adjuster that gets the claim is going to look at it and say, well, were they just acting on their own? Did they just decide to go to this conference? Was it actually advancing the city's business? Or should it be a claim that's denied based on that fact, or just sent back to their personal auto insurance? So it sort of depends just on course and scope. It always comes back to the course and scope.
The way that we typically do conferences, we check with the city manager and the city recorder, and they determine whether or not we are. Is that sufficient, or are you saying that we have to do it at council?
So if you have communication back and forth with the city manager and it's memorialized in some way, that's going to come into play, right? The insurance company is probably going to look at that and say, yeah, it's something that they customarily go to every year, and the members asked about it, and the city's paying for it. Likely, that's going to be covered. Yeah. Again, best practice, you guys decide in here as a group, we're going to go to these conferences. You could step it up a notch and do that. Good question. Ethics violation, accused of creating public policy for one's own benefit or enrichment. So talking about this a little bit, and this happens, this one happened locally as well. The question will be, did you do it? Right? Should you ever accuse yourself? The defense costs that are offered under the policy will be held back until that determination is made, until you win the case, and they will be reimbursed to you if that's the final outcome. And then you get a $0 reimbursement if you do not. Oops, wrong button. Okay, so just kind of recapping, as a council, be deliberate. The more deliberate you are in these meetings and the more you describe what you're doing, and the better the paper trail and the documentation and the meeting minutes, the better your coverage is going to be, the more protection you're going to have, because you're going to be broadening the scope of what your duties are as you describe them. And that way, if you are caught in a position where you are speaking about something that council hasn't discussed, and you face the possibility that it could be denied for whatever reason. But if council has discussed it and it's in the meeting minutes, then it's pretty easy to point back to. Be deliberate about who you are asking to speak for you. When they speak for the board, how often, what context, and delivering what message. The more you can give context around those things, the better you are. And as a board member, think twice about what you're doing. Again, we're not telling you can't do it. If you decide that you want to step outside the bounds of city business and respond, I'm not going to advise it, but we can't tell you no. So just be aware of what that does to your personal insurance coverage, and how your CIS policy would respond. And don't assume that you are covered outside of the scope of your duties. If you have a question, talk with your city attorney, talk with Brown & Brown if you need to. We're always happy to help. CIS is happy to help as well. I believe that's all. Any questions from the group?
Hi, mate. Thanks for presenting. Always good to see you again. I have a quick question that just occurred to me. We've never spoken about this before. If a councillor or staff person attends a sister city celebration or event, for example, if they go to Japan or Austria, do we have any coverage for the overseas part of their travel, or would we have to get a separate policy through Brown & Brown for that purpose?
You want to look at a foreign liability policy in order to cover that. So we can double check if there's any coverage at all, but typically your cities will purchase a foreign liability policy, and I believe that you have exclusions in there, especially to some of the more dangerous areas. So
both of our sister cities are extremely law-abiding places. So
yeah, well, that's good to hear. Thank you, everyone.
Next item on our agenda is the updates to nuisance ordinance change.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council, Scott Siegel, Community Development Director,
Brian Kershaw with Capital Engineering.
and Neil Winter, our Code Enforcement Officer, may be joining us in a bit. We're here this evening for a presentation and a work session on review of the city's provision within the city's nuisance code that relates to construction hours and the noise effects that construction can have on neighborhoods particularly. This was brought to our attention internally. In fact, I think we sort of came to consensus between community development, the police department, and capital projects and public works that the police department routinely receives requests to grant permits to allow construction hours beyond the code-based hours, which are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Weekdays only. And increasingly, they're seeing more requests for extended construction hours as we're seeing an increase in construction. And some of the work that you're seeing around town, the larger land development projects have sort of supply chain needs and constraints that are different than home remodels or infill projects. So over the past year, Sergeant Ronning and Mr. Winter, I think, indicated that they've received or they've approved 5 requests for permits to extend construction hours. Typically, it's for work on the weekends, and it's for a variety of reasons that Mr. Kershaw can go into if you have questions about, and it's documented in the staff report, the types of reasons and requests that they're receiving. But the process is set up so that the city can grant these permits for a period of 3 days at a time, and it can be renewed, I believe, once. And so it's very limited, and for a reason, and that this is a nuisance code, and it's meant to protect residents and neighbors from impacts of construction. The code, the existing code, it defines what is considered to be unnecessary or unreasonable noise or excessive noise, and it lists construction. But then it provides exceptions to that for, as I said, during the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. weekdays only. Other exceptions are for emergency situations. Obviously, if it's an emergency, the city allows for the repair, or usually it's repair that has to happen. There are also exceptions or allowances, I should say, for utility companies, private utilities, under their franchise agreements with the city, are allowed to operate after hours or on the weekends when they're constructing, maintaining, or repairing their facilities. The staff report that you have before you has 3 attachments, and the first attachment 1 has the existing code. So that just covers what I've been describing. It talks about what is considered permissible construction noise, provides for the exceptions. And the second attachment is a comparison of noise restriction or construction hours that are allowed by other communities, some of which are in our area. And so we looked at that, and what we found, not surprisingly, is that we're more restrictive than some of these other communities. We looked at Dundee, McMinnville, Sherwood, and I put Lake Oswego in there just because I'm familiar with Lake Oswego, and they tend to be more restrictive than other communities on a lot of different fronts. So we thought it would be useful to look at that. What we found was that of those cities, Newberg is really the only community of that sample that does not allow any construction, or at least construction that would generate noise levels that would violate the nuisance code on Saturdays. The other communities do allow for that on Saturdays. The hours vary. And most of them do not allow it on Sundays, although Sherwood is an example that they do allow construction on Sundays during the same hours that they would allow construction on other days. And McMinnville too allows construction during the same hours. So generally, in looking at this, we thought, well, we should bring this to council for your consideration and direction. Sort of the pros and cons or the trade-offs, if you were to consider extending construction hours to Saturdays, which we are recommending, and also consider limited hours on Sundays, the intent there would be to help facilitate the completion of these projects so that they're not just ongoing. So the duration of that impact, if there is an impact, would be shorter. And it's also, we believe, consistent with your goals for customer service and maintaining infrastructure and to help facilitate that. So with that, I will conclude my comments, and Mr. Kershaw's here. We're here to answer any questions that you might have. We are asking for direction if you're interested in aligning our standards with those of the other communities that we're sharing, that you would make a motion directing staff to prepare an ordinance and return with that at a future meeting. So we're happy to answer any questions.
So Scott, has primarily contractors, are they the ones that are pushing to be able to work on Saturdays? I thought contractors were working on Saturdays because I live over by Crestview Crossing, and it seemed like even some Sundays, I can sit out in my backyard, I can look across the park right there, and I can watch and listen. Didn't bother me. I just thought that's what needs to be done.
They are working weekends.
Oh, okay.
They are. They did get some noise permit variances to be able to do so. They're not the only site that's doing it. They're all doing it until they get somebody to complain. Then code enforcement or PD's got to go out there and tell them to stop.
Okay, so you're bringing this to us with the idea that typically in our code, you can't do it unless you get a special permit or okay or something.
But you're limited to how many of those you can get. per
Okay,
year.
okay. So by doing this, are we going to irritate the public more, or is this more to help contractors to stay on budget and on cycle
I
to
don't
get their
think you're gonna
projects
get
done?
any more complaints. The budget reasons, especially when you're dealing with the DEQ permit or 1200C for some of the erosion control or wet weather windows, with DEQ itself limits you from April 30th to October 15th. That's your window if you need to move a lot of dirt. So when we're limiting their times Monday through Friday, they're out there trying to get what they can done for that season.
Yeah, there's an educational component to this too. So if you were to change the hours, we would want to do outreach, particularly in those neighborhoods that are seeing larger scale development, or at a minimum, communicate this to the contractors so that they're informed and prepared to answer those questions.
Do you think I mean, I know my opinion, I don't think I, as a normal person, would know Newberg Municipal Code off the top of my head to know whether or not, I mean, as a non-construction person, I would just assume that they could operate whenever they wanted, frankly. Or like, quiet hours or something, but I personally feel like I would totally support Saturday construction and frankly, Sunday construction too, so. Kind of where I stand. As long as the chief is your team, how does Neil feel? And
Yeah, I would allow it. We usually, I'd say on average, maybe one person per large construction area. It will consistently complain, and quite honestly, the fines when you have these multi-million-dollar projects, it's laughable. So you're just slowing down construction. Well, actually, you're not, because we go out there and we fine them. And they just put it in their pocket and they keep working. Yes.
As a general contractor, I can tell you that nobody I know checks with the city what the hours are of construction hours. Typically, it's 8 in the morning on Saturday, and that's what I would like to see us do on Saturday. In the wintertime, days are short, and if you're gonna work a day, you wanna get in as many hours as you possibly can. By the way, I think snow blowers are much, or, leaf blowers are much worse for, nuisance than construction noise, because they usually happen a lot closer to your house. But, the worst part about this is any complaint made is gonna generate a lot of staff time to deal with. And even these folks that are getting weekly permits how much staff time are we spending doing that? So I think it's a no-brainer. I would go 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. I'm ambivalent as to whether or not we work on Sunday. That is,
Keep in
Yeah.
mind too, I might just add that the work that they do on the weekends, it's non-inspectable. So whatever they do, they're preparing for a Monday inspection.
That's right.
So they don't get to do work and just go in there and do what they'd like to do, how they want to do it. They can get to a point where they need an inspection again, and then we'll take care of that early in the week, Mondays.
Yeah. And one thing I might add, it might go without saying, but this doesn't apply to your DIY, someone's building a play structure in their backyard or assembling a deck, whatnot. It's really, this is like nuisance level noise, and that's why it has to be explicitly exempt certain activities like utilities or construction, land development. It's complaint based really, so that's why it's set up that way.
And we work hard in the pre-construction meetings with the contractors before they start, to reach out. I mean, act like you're working in front of your parents' house. Talk to the community you're impacting, build a relationship with those neighbors. And I think that's why we don't get a lot of complaints, because they're already out there anyways.
Yeah, I used to manage the code compliance program for another city, and we received far more complaints about noise, and it wasn't just construction. It was a lot of different things. So I think the construction process here is managed very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
so, if I remember correctly, reading in the material online, you had recommended 9 o'clock on Saturday, and I don't.
Sunday.
Oh, Sunday, 9 o'clock. What time Saturday?
7.
Oh, 7 on Saturday, okay. So, looks like,
Typically, we're finding the contractors when they start at 7 on a Saturday, they like to get out of there early to enjoy the rest of their weekend.
absolutely. But, of course, there's no point in irritating a person in the house next to you that's trying to sleep, so, most contractors are somewhat,
They're
sensitive
usually
to
all
that.
pretty good about that, starting things up, making a lot of noise. They wait as long as they can, especially on the weekends.
so are we looking for a motion here? Or the thumbs up we just gave, is that a good enough?
If there's consensus, Mayor, we will prepare a draft ordinance for your consideration in a future meeting.
Yeah, looks like we have consensus. Thank you.
Thank you.
He was up very early this morning preparing for a sloppy seal.
Rachel, you should have stuck this on the consent agenda. This is a no-brainer.
So, but then I don't get to sing footloose, right? And start talking about repealing our footloose laws and making jokes about being the cigarette vending machines are and all sorts of fun stuff. So, this really should be called the Take Things Off of Rachel's Plate Code Appeal, because a lot of them are things that are related to my work. The reason it's not on the consent agenda is because it will be an ordinance change. It will have to come before you and you'll have to go through the legislative hearing process at the next meeting. So that today I'll just tell you a little bit about it. I'm going very high level because this is pretty no-brainer stuff. Well, thanks for trusting me. I do my best, guys. So there's 3 code sections now that I'm bringing you, and you're going to see me more and more because I'm going through our code now and trying to find some of these little relics that have lasted for some reason. The first one is cigarette vending machines. Cigarette vending machines are not legal according to state law, so it's kind of silly that I am officially in charge of all cigarette vending machines in the city of Newberg because they're not legal anyways. So I'm asking that we remove that section of code. If there are any, I'm coming for you because I haven't gotten my cut in a long, no, I'm joking. Shouldn't say that. No. Not to my knowledge. I mean, they haven't been legal in the state for a while, so, in Yankee Stadium. They have them in Japan. When I lived there, they're all, yeah. Yep. The next code is what I've been calling the Footloose Code. There's a whole section on dances in the city of Newberg and permits for dances. We could get rid of more of it if we choose to, but one section I'd like to repeal is a line about minor children, 15 and younger, are not allowed to be at any public dances unless a parent or guardian is physically present the entire time. Now, as I've told my children, this doesn't mean I'm going to let them go to dances without a parent or guardian present, but that feels like maybe something we might want to get rid of. Now, if you all object, I'll stop going after that one. But my use case here is 14-year-olds dancing at the Old Fashioned Festival. Are we now causing an issue with violation of code? So I feel that it's worthwhile to take that one out. But yeah, it's a parent's responsibility, right? Yeah, schools and religious organizations have been exempt from the dance permit this whole time. So
But they usually have chaperones.
they do have
Because
chaperones, exactly.
when my kids were in school, I was one of the chaperones.
Yep, exactly.
But then that was a bazillion years ago. Maybe they don't do that anymore.
Another thing that's in there. So another thing that is in the dance code that we can look at, and I didn't write it on this, but I'm happy to bring it back in the full ordinance change, is there is a requirement in there to have security provided by the police. We don't really have that. So Sergeant Ronning said, we'd love to get rid of that. So that's a conversation about that we can also look at if you'd like me to. Okay, so it sounds like yes on that one too. I like I told you, I get to have the most fun at the city because I get to do things like this. And the last one is we have a Cable Communications Commission that is in our code, but has not been active for many, 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 many years. They were to regulate the usage of cable television and to start a local cable access channel for Newberg. We have neither, and we don't regulate cable ourselves. So I'd like to get rid of that section as well. So those are the three I'm bringing for you tonight. Any questions? All right, we'll have fun with this. I'll try and have sound effects. It is fun. Yes. I actually really enjoy going through and finding things I don't think are necessary. And I've got a whole book full, and I'm going to start going through them with some of our police sergeants, and we're going to figure this out. Okay, so that is your update on that.
Is there any money in the cable commission budget at all that needs to be
No.
distributed? Of course, we'll, put it in the city coffers, not our coffers.
And the funny thing is when it was established, they established like a line item for it and all sorts of things, and it does not exist at all anymore. When I found it, I laughed pretty hard. So we do not have cable access channel in Newberg, unfortunately. Some cities do, and some cities that channel actually runs and broadcasts the city council meetings. Yep. Yeah. All right. Any other questions on that one? All right, that's all I have for you on that one. It's me again. Yeah, you've got me for the next 3 items and the next meeting, so.
Next 3 items. I only see
Well,
one more
the
on the
next
agenda.
next 2 items, sorry, 3 items in a row. And the next is just on the next meeting.
All right, let's go.
All right, the next is the League of Oregon Cities requires us to designate a voting delegate for the city of Newberg for their annual meeting. Now, Mayor Rosacker is attending the meeting in person, and now it's on the record at a city council meeting with all your approval that he's going to this conference. There we go. We took care of 2 birds, 1 stone. Yeah. Oh, darn it. Well, maybe he'll see the recording. So he is going to be there, so we can easily have Mayor Rosacker as the attendee. However, if you'd like to appoint a delegate, or if you'd like to have the option of someone else be the delegate and vote virtually, we need to have a resolution signed appointing someone. So what I think might be a good option is do a resolution and appoint whoever you'd like to as your main delegate and your alternate. That way we're covered if you suddenly couldn't go or didn't want to go to this meeting, someone else could cover it. Or you can choose to just say, we're appointing the mayor, we're not appointing a backup, and then I'll fill out the form. So there's a form for that if he's going to be there in person. But if anyone wants to attend virtually, or you want to appoint someone who's not attending the conference, then I need a resolution.
Can it be a staff member? Does it have to be an elected?
I believe it has to be an elected official.
So nobody else is going to the conference, right?
Unless someone wants to do it, I'm fine with it being you.
Okay, but I'm thinking of the delegate as well.
Well, she just said you could be the delegate if all of us
Yeah,
agree
but
to.
she needs an alternate in case.
An
I
alternate
get
would be
killed on the
great.
way there. And I won't be insured by my insured by CMAs, it sounds like. Go ahead, Peggy.
The alternate required?
The alternate is requested in the resolution. So LOC sent us a formal resolution they ask you to do, and they require an alternate in that. I doubt you would need the alternate, but I think it's good practice to have that in place.
Since nobody else is planning to attend, I'm very comfortable just having Bill be our delegate and not worry about an alternate. At least for this year.
And do you want to do that by just saying it's going to be Mayor Rosacker, or do we want to officially do a resolution to submit? Since you'll be there in person, we don't have to have one according to their bylaws. But if for some reason you want to attend virtually, or if we want to have an alternate just in case, we'll want to have the resolution in place.
I'm fine being listed as the alternate, and then if you get sick, you can call me, but if you don't, then I'm not going. If it will mean that our resolution can go through. List me and then don't invite me if he's going.
All right, somebody want to make a motion then?
I will motion that we approve Mayor Rosacker to represent Newberg as the delegate for League of Oregon Cities Annual Conference, with Elisa Hallman as the alternate to attend only if Mayor Rosacker is not attending.
I'll second that. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Right, okay, thank you. All this paperwork. That's all I have for this.
Okay, that's it, right? Because that's the end of my list as
That's the
well.
end of your meeting.
So
Yeah.
we will, I'll talk to Will. I'm sure that we'll put that item on the agenda. It sounds like we also need to put an item on the agenda to talk about more insurance for our elected officials. A little bit scary what some of the things he said. So we should look into that, I think. Well, I'll talk to Will and we'll maybe put it on a, judge might look in his face, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see.
Honorable Mayor Rosacker, we can always vary the numbers every year. For example, we've increased cyber liability over the last couple of years just to make sure we get more protection against cyber attack. But yes, we can certainly look into adding more if that's the will of council.
I'm fine. I mean, James has got big guns at his, firm, and so I feel comfortable.
Well, Mike, you're exactly what I'm worried about. What if you go out in the community and say something wrong and you don't have any coverage at all? Anyway, that's it. Our meeting's adjourned.
They only have NURA.
Oh, that's right. Who's doing that with Derek? Here.
Should be quick.
Do you guys want to take a quick 5-minute break or just get it done? Get her done. Okay. All right. I open this meeting of the Newberg Urban Renewal Agency meeting, and let's have roll call. Oh, there you are.
All right. Counselor McBride, Wheatley, Yarnell, Holloman, Kilberg, Rosacker, and Turgeson are all present. Counselor Carmen is absent.
Okay, so we have 2 people to appoint to the committee. But Derek had a comment that he gave to Rachel, and we'll let Rachel go ahead and read this off before we move on.
So Derek's comment's very brief. He says that Joe Chirella has experience from his previous appointment to the committee, and Corolla Cochran was chosen for a prior banking and administrative history.
Chair. Motion to approve both Joe Chirella and Corolla Cochran to the NURA Budget Committee.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes. All right. I
Yes.
adjourn this meeting.
Yes, that's correct.